We encourage engagement questions as they come up, and we would love to hear from you. A little bit about me. I guess some people have asked, how I got into the mix and who am I and who's this person all of a sudden hosting all these things and emails from Jen at Genre. So I guess I'll just give you a little bit of a short bio. My history is actually in the fashion industry. So I've been in the fashion industry for over 15 years. I manage sales teams and wholesale distribution for global apparel companies in North America, in Vancouver, BC, and then also in New York. I left the corporate world in 2010 and created my own sustainable leather handbag line. Sold it in 2018 and started a coaching business focused on helping entrepreneurs and executives get out of their own way of success. And so most recently, that's how I met Chris and Kerry. We started working together, working with the leadership team, and then COVID hit, and then shit hit the fan. And then we just started getting more involved, hosting these masterminds. And then Chris will tell you a little bit about what our next kind of project is together. So we'll introduce now the rest of the panelists. So we've got Kerry Flowers. Kerry, why don't you say a hello?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Marketing guru and founder of Genre Hotels. With over 30 years of relationship marketing experience, Kerry has companies as diverse as Hyatt and Kimpton on his resume. This Purdue-educated Sigma Chi frat boy, hotel expert, has founded 3 hospitality marketing companies, including Kerry Hotels, Kerry Camp, and providing an unparalleled representation to independent hotels. Next up, we've got Peter Gamez. Peter, why don't you say a hello?
Hello, everyone from San Francisco.
Yeah, so Pete here is the founder and principal of Hunter Hospitality Consultants. He specializes in executive sales and business development with a laser focus to exceed revenue goals and secure partnerships that will impact the bottom line. As a leading boutique lifestyle specialist, he has launched over 46 hotels and developed 5 brands in 8 countries. He's a fearless visionary that will strategically and successfully lead organizations with limited resources to produce cutting-edge results. Sounds like the perfect time right now, Pete. And he's recognized for unique and broad networking capabilities, creating exposure for companies that historically are new in a marketplace. Steve Pinetti, why don't you say a hello?
Hey, everybody. How's it going this morning?
Steve Pinetti.
Good to be here.
Yes, co-founder and senior vice president of inspiration and creativity at Kimpton Hotels, as well as founder of Pinetti Way. Steve helps organizations of all sizes in the hospitality, healthcare, and service industries train their employees to strengthen their culture and align brand values around a shared purpose and vision. Through workshops and custom tailored courses that focus on creativity and problem solving, personal evolution, unique top line strategies, employee and customer experiences, Steve helps leaders hit the reset button to break through the ruts and routines standing in the way of their growth and success. That's it. Chris, take it back to you, buddy.
Everyone, thank you again for joining today. You have all been such a valued participant with the Hospitality Mastermind series. We have an incredible topic today, reinventing yourself through mentorship. I know I've been mentored and it has transformed my life personally. And hopefully you'll get something out of this today, even just something to walk away with. But first off, we've got several talking points with questions. So please do feel free to throw in your question if it's relevant to the talking point. First talking point is having the right attitude to thrive. Attitude. So this one, first off, will be directed to Kerry Flowers. Kerry, how have you shifted your attitude towards leveraging your success? Can you expand on that? Give us a little bit about, again, your background and how that attitude has shifted and supported your success.
Chris, absolutely. Before I begin, I wanted to say it's great to share this stage with both Steve Pinetti and Peter Gamez and all the listeners online because so much of everything together goes into our right attitude. If I think about the last 34 years of starting with Steve, and Peter and I actually started on the same day with Kimpton Hotels back in like 1989, I think it was, Pete. But I want to say again, thank you. And we'll come back to that in a second. When it comes to, I think, the right attitude, it's funny, in my career, and we all have ups and downs, right? And to me, daily ups and downs is just not like how you can view it from afar. To me, it's every day. And so I got into meditation about probably 15, 20 years ago when Steve Pinetti used to drive me so hard, and for a good reason. And so I started to do my meditation from that. And because I wanted to balance the good with the great, right? And so this morning I'm meditating, and all of a sudden Deepak Chopra comes on, and I'm just going to read to you what he said today. Everything we can see, touch, hear, taste, and smell is made from the same source. While we may refer to source as God, a higher power, perhaps the cosmos, source is the entire universe, the unified field, everything that is beyond the perception of our five senses. The key to success and attracting abundance in life comes from this unified field. Within it lies the power of infinite creativity just waiting for your call. So ask yourself this question: what do I want more in my life? If we think about what's happening in the world today, we all want, or we have to change our paradigm. Nothing is the same. Our attitude has been stripped away, and we're rebuilding based on what's been happening. We're taking the old and we're creating the new. So here are things I'm looking at in my life. I look at change. I look at a better attitude, because I was mad when COVID hit. I look at how to be more open to criticism, because what we're doing now is something that might not be what we did before. So you're taking a risk, right? And then what about entrepreneurship? It's like you have to think now in your current job and in your old job, whether you have a job, where you're going in your new job, how to be an entrepreneur in that field. So if I look at all of that, I'm taking it back right now to Steve and to Pete. When I met Steve and Pete back in the late 80s, Steve was working for Kimpton Hotels as one of the co-founders. And he was somebody that I looked at as going, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. I'm like just trying to figure out what I'm doing. So Steve and I go for a drink one day, and Steve says to me 2 years into my job with Kimpton, and that was after the 1989 earthquake, Kerry, you used to start your own club. And I'm like, a club? Why a club? And he goes, because you know all the travel people out there, and let's just do a club. And then we called it, he goes, just call it the Kerry Club. I'm like, that's the stupidest name I've ever heard. When I thought about it and I stepped back, I think about the change that I had to make in order to make that work. I was scared to put my name out there in the cosmos because I felt that if I called it my name, people would laugh. But what happened was, with the right attitude, I was able to overcome any criticism. I was able to overcome the change of going from nothing to something. I was able to overcome now being my own entrepreneur. And the list kept going. And what I found when I look back at that so many years later is that it is mentorship that got me there. And I had to actually, it's funny, I actually had to twist myself so many times within my cosmos to figure this out. But if you go back to mentorship, and mentorship, you guys, could be somebody that you respect, somebody who you think is not your mentor, but what you can learn from. A mentor could also be what I don't want from that person. because that person can teach you how to be better. So my whole point to this is the right attitude to thrive is taking a little bit from everybody that you meet. Pinetti was that guy for me. And then if I look at Gamez always had an answer for everything. If we had the earthquake in 1989, if we had 9/11, if we had the Great Recession, if we had now COVID, I would go back to Peter and go, Peter, what's going on? Point is, it's that attitude of change, it's attitude of gratitude, it's attitude of being an entrepreneur within yourself. And don't discount your insecurity, because insecurity is power. That will get you through because it makes you work harder.
That's so good, Kerry. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is very detailed, and your story is incredible. I know it's motivated myself. Just to go to Pete real quick. Pete, do you want to expand on attitude? How has that leveraged your success?
Sure. And I'm going to piggyback on Kerry's story. What Kerry really is talking about today and how we can practically, in practical purposes, use today is branding of yourself, right? Now is the time during this difficult period that you guys all need to ask yourself, well, what is my own self-brand? I mean, Steve encouraged us to do that, to be our own self when we were within the Kimpton group, and really carried through it at the Joie de Vivre organization. But a lot of times we're finding ourselves going, wow, I am not working right now. I am not working with a certain company, which kind of gave a lot of our audience their identity. We need to stop right now, and all of you need to ask yourself, what is my brand moving forward? And how that relates to mentorship and attitude is being open with yourself and saying, okay, I know the brand I want to be, but what are the steps that I need to take to either strengthen my brand or realize what my strengths are, what I'm being able to offer to my new employer?
Wow, Pete, thank you. Steve, this question is a piggyback for you, but for a person who manages or has managed teams and individuals, how important is to let someone's personality and their attitude to thrive in a situation when people are just trying to survive? What is your advice to that when it comes to the management side and being a leader?
I wish I had my honey badger hat for this opening question. A lot of you out there will appreciate that. I think the first thing is you need to understand that one's attitude will affect every element of your life. It touches every aspect of who you are, what you are, where you're going, how you're going to get there. Attitude is absolutely necessary. The question today is, how do you keep your momentum to thrive, not just survive? How do you keep your attitude in check? Because I think, as Kerry said, everybody's been stopped in their tracks and everybody has been challenged. And I think if you have some sense of self-awareness and who you are and what you can do, how good you are, and take a look at what the other opportunities are, not only just within the industry that you're in right now, but what are the skills that you've developed doing what you do that are maybe transferable. I think one doesn't need to necessarily be paralyzed by what's going on. It's a showstopper for sure. I get that. But that should last about 10 seconds. And at that point, it's like, I got to get on my horse. I have got to get going. And I've got to either create my own environment, take my skill set, create my own business, a little scary. But if you're really good at what you do, why not hire out as an independent contractor? If that doesn't work for you, then the secret is to try and find a self-aware company or organization that would welcome you and appreciate you for being who you are and what you can bring to the party. There are a lot of companies out there that are being shocked and awed at the moment. And if they've ever thought about making any changes, this, I guess, is applicable to an individual as well as a company. But if anybody or any entity has ever thought about making changes, you just got jump-started. Because in order to survive, to Kerry's point, you're going to need to change. You're going to need to do things different. You're going to need to evolve. And this is one of those rare opportunities that maybe somebody who thought, no, it's time for me to find another job. I'm not really happy. Well, you don't have to think about it. It's been brought to your doorstep. The point being, companies will either go into a panic or they'll take the high road. And they're going to realize that in order to survive, there needs to be a change across the board. And one of those initial elements will be some self-insight to who an organization is as an organization. How do they want to move forward? What's important to people today and going forward, the new norm, so to speak. And I think at the end of the day, the companies that are going to survive are the ones that do come from the heart, are smart enough to balance heart and mind to be effective, and are going to be smart enough to find people that have that same balance of heart and mind. And so I think anybody can find a job if you really want to work. That's not the problem. The problem is finding that kind of an environment who is going to support you, appreciate the value and the skill set you bring, grow you at the same time, train you at the same time, and turn you into that valuable asset you could be for yourself and them. I think the more hierarchical, fear-based companies, the my way or the highway, do what you're told, those are a thing of the past. They won't make it through this moment in time. They're not going to make it. The ones who are going to be the ones that we want to work with or work for. And so it's a matter of knowing where you want to be in this moment in time and either going your own route or finding those that can give you that kind of supportive environment.
Wow. 3 great responses from all of you. Jen, I know you had a question regarding attitude. Do you want to expand on that?
Yes. So regarding attitude, it can be so simple. We've heard of the can-do attitude, the right attitude, and we're talking about having the right attitude to thrive. So what does that mean to you? What does it mean to have the right attitude?
Can I start, Jen?
Yes, please.
You know, I see a lot of Joie de Vivre alum as participants as well, so welcome. But, you know, when you talk about having the right attitude, we had a really wise president, Jack Kenney, and he would always tell me, show up like it matters. And I know that sounds like so basic for everybody, but who are we kidding? There were days that I would have meetings that I didn't want to be there, and I really needed to focus. And he would constantly ask his leaders, show up when like it matters, because that is important in our current role. Now, we're having some difficult times right now. And let me tell you, there's some days that I don't want to network and I don't want to go and reinvent myself because it's a lot of work. But showing up like it matters now in attitude could be a great planner. Allow yourself to say, sometimes I don't want to do this, but start creating habits, which I do now, which is 30 minutes to an hour, Monday through Friday, of just focusing on my brand. And as that goes along throughout when that becomes a habit, believe me, think about it. That means that you're contributing 20 to 25 hours for yourself a month about creating a brand so you can show value to a new employer or a new project. But that's showing up like it matters to me, even during some difficult times.
Wow.
And Pete, if I could just add to what you said about habit, you know, after the 2007 recession, I started a company called Kerry Camp. And Kerry Camp happened to be more of a sales training company during a time when hotels, again, were obliterated and they were not hiring the higher paid directors of sales or employees. And so you had to bring up all of these more coordinators and assistants into higher level jobs. And one thing we talked about, because people kept saying, how do I make sure that my boss knows I'm in it to win it, right? Because I've never been in that position before. And so what we came up with is, it's like this. So you have a partner at home, you know, and you've been with each other for so many months of COVID. And now you get on each other's nerves, right? But when it matters and you're going out that door and you're going to someplace, your attitude matters. And even with your partners, what I'm trying to do is it's like this. If I had a fight with somebody, I'm going to knock on that front door of a guest I'm walking into. And when that guest opens that door, I'm going to be so bright and cheery. You're never going to know that I just had a fight with my partner. I'm developing a habit of attitude because we all let our guard down. We all go under the waterline. I can do it sometimes daily. But even with my own staff, I make sure I catch myself with them. I go, you guys, sometimes I'm not feeling so great. And I want you to know it's not you, it's me. So my job is to make sure that you know that I have a great attitude. So you have to develop this attitude at all times of always being above the waterline so you can stay healthy and strong for days like COVID, going out there to find that next new job, because that increases how you are in your gratitude, etc. So keep your attitude above the waterline and you will see success.
And I think you need to keep your attitude on the razor's edge. Right. There are no bad days. There's no bad days. The fact that we're here talking about it means we've gotten through 5 months of bad days. Yeah. You need to be on the razor's edge. You should look at this moment in time as an opportunity, not a kind of the shit show that it actually is, because most people are going to freak out. And most people, and we'll talk about how to help those people. That's kind of the crux of this call. But at the end of the day, you know, for the people who don't freak out, who can kind of hold their shit together and stay mentally sharp and focused, and kind of what both Kerry and Pete have talked about, staying on the razor's edge. If you're going to interview for a job, find out who that person is that's going to hire you, and go park in their parking place and be there when they come in for work, and serve them a cup of coffee and have a donut, find out their favorite donut, and go get the job. You cannot wait. You need to move forward. If you're waiting for a stimulus check, we shouldn't even be having that conversation. But I think it's an opportunity right now to enhance your game, enhance your personal and professional position, and kind of take this thing by the horns and move it forward as far and as hard and as intense and as fast as you possibly can. No prisoners. You don't really have much of a choice in the matter.
Agreed.
Wow. You know that saying, you are who you surround yourself with. And this moves on to the next question. And Pete,
Chris, before I move forward on
please.
that, I just want to thank Steve Pinetti, because he professionally taught me how to stalk people before Facebook and LinkedIn.
You know the truth. Well, I appreciate that comment, because yes, we noticed that. So Pete, let's go back to you then.
Yeah.
The whole idea of you got to surround yourself with the right people. How can we take something from somebody and make it your own? Because mentorship is huge. We got to look up to the right people. Can you expand on how you may have taken something, whether it's from Steve or a mentor, and that actually propelled you in your growth?
Sure. Well, I want to say that you want to start off, Chris, with some sort of a game plan. And when it comes to mentorship, and I want to share a story of over this COVID period of what I've been doing. One of the things that I said to myself is like, okay, well, we have to be agile and pivot, which, by the way, pivot is probably the most overused word right now, which it kind of bugs me. But I like to challenge people. They say, oh, I'm pivoting. And then when you ask them, they have no game plan. They know what that means. So if you're going to pivot, I encourage everyone to have a game plan and create that of what that pivot's going to be. But one of the things I asked myself during this period is, I like travel. I'm going to stay in this industry. I've created my own brand for that. Well, what's going on around me? And I realized that commercial aviation wasn't happening right away. Meetings such as the traditional United and American Airlines. But I noticed that private jets and charters were rising. So I said, I'm going to start mentoring myself, or find a mentor in that industry. And I'm so happy to say that right now I'm helping JSX Airlines with something called JSX Experiences. It's a private commercial jet and I'm helping them on the hotel end, creating hotel experiences for their packages. what I'm trying to encourage everyone to do is look around you. Look at and see there are needs still in travel that you can bring your expertise and your attitude to assist or grow that person or grow that person's business. But you have to start off with a plan, and creating that plan on how you're going to network your way for that mentorship or into that company.
That's so good. Kerry, do you want to elaborate on taking something from somebody and make it your own?
Well, it's funny. Well, Chris, so I've mentored Chris for a number of years, and even Walter in our company, we talk about mentorship as well. And I also think it's sort of a two-way street because you learn from the mentee and you learn from the mentor. And because what you do is you bounce ideas off of each other. And that's so prevalent now more than ever. It's like if you don't have a mentor, all you have to do is ask. 10 years ago, Chris came to me. We were talking. He goes, we were talking for a bit. And he goes, will you be my mentor? And I'm like, what does that mean? My point was it grew into a relationship of mutual respect. And I can't tell you how much I've learned from him. And here's another thing. And Michelle Freeman just sent me a message. We don't know who we actually are mentors to sometimes. Michelle, thank you for saying I've been a mentor to you. Because when you and I speak, you and I bounce ideas off of each other. I can tell you a plethora of people in my life that have come to me. I'm like, what do you mean? But that is one of my takeaways from this, is that ask somebody to be your mentor, find time with somebody to mentee. You can actually figure this out. This is the best time to do it. And it doesn't need to be a lifelong thing. Steve, Pete, and I talk about it could be a lifeline. You can have a lifeline to somebody and say, hey, I need your help. And that takeaway right there could save so much time and put you on the right track to being so freaking successful. It's like, congratulations right there.
I love that. Thank you, Kerry, for sharing that. And this kind of leads to showing up with a game plan. And this question is directed to Steve. Steve, you brought this up in our little huddle group the other day with the panel about what to look for in an individual when it comes to enhancing their brand, working on self, offering unique skill sets. What do you look for from an individual that stands out? Because sometimes we don't even know, but there are certain things that you could propel that individual to the next step.
I think I must have interviewed a gazillion people over time, and everybody is really great at what they do, and everybody is a good communicator, and everybody is a good manager. Everybody's good at kind of the same stuff. And the person I would be looking for in an interview would be the person, again, who is self-aware and is able to communicate to me about who they are. I'm not necessarily worried about what they've done or what they've accomplished. I'm more worried or concerned, if I'm hiring, about who they are as a person. You can tell me you're a really good communicator, but you could also then tell me that you're really a good communicator because you motivate people by reaching into their heart and their soul and valuing what they can bring, and that you know that by doing that, you will end up being a good leader. And as a good leader, you'll get the ball to wherever it is we're going. Hired. I've hired people 10 minutes into an interview because they knew who they were and they could communicate with me. They did a little bit of homework on me, the company, our needs, and so on and so forth. So I think, a couple of the things when you're, if somebody said, why should I hire you? You should have 3 answers that they've never heard. So maybe take all those reasons why I should hire you and think about how to word them in a way that that person has never heard. Your 3 skills, think about the 3 skills you offer and think about a way to word those skills in a way that the person interviewing has never, ever heard them linked. I mean, that's sort of the tip of the iceberg. But if I was going to reinvent myself, and if I was going to go out and look for a job and interview, that would be the thing I would do. There's a whole version of the homework you should do on the company and or the people or person you're going to be hired by about how to handle that. And again, that's what mentorships are for. The other half of this we keep referring to is starting your own company. If you're really good at sales, you should hire out as a gunslinger, hire out as an independent contractor. If you're good at sales, you're worth whatever you want if you can produce. And whether you're selling hotel rooms or you're selling restaurant seats or you're selling, trips to the moon, if you know how to sell, don't just limit yourself with the industry that you're coming out of. Be an independent. Quite frankly, there are a lot of fires burning in a lot of corporate offices these days. And the number one thing they got a problem with is top line.
Yes,
Right.
Yes, the landscape is changed. You need to go. Pete inspired me. I'm going to get myself kind of into, I need to go do a mentorship with somebody like Amazon. I need to call somebody in their corporate office. I want to get my head into that. That's the future. It's actually already here. The question is, where are they going to take that business? I would love to be a fly on the wall to that. So those are the kind of things that I think, again, if your attitude is sharp and your mind is clear, you've gotten through the panic, those are the things that you ought to be thinking about on how to rebrand yourself, either as an employee or starting up your own organization.
Steve, that's such a great response to game plan. And Peter, before you elaborate, because we love to go to you, Jen, you said there's a question from the audience that you want to.
Yeah, Pete, I would like to direct this question to you because you're so good with the practical aspect of executing a game plan. So what would be the top 3 things to focus on when beginning to develop a personal game plan?
Yeah, good question.
Developing the personal game plan it's kind of like creating the roadmap, right? And what I find that those people that are successful at it, and you've heard me talk about it earlier on the call, is creating habits, right? And I really think that you have to dedicate time in your calendar and create that habit to create that roadmap to have a successful game plan. Part of your game plan also needs to include your strengths, right? So, for example, if I feel my strength is networking and reaching out to a group of people, part of that game plan is going to be networking. And it's going to say, I even, for my own business, and as I mentioned earlier, I spend about an hour and a half just on my own brand. I even write the amount of people that I need to be talking to every day. So by the end of the week, I've touched 20 people about where I want to go. So that's going to be key. And I want to jump on something that Steve said earlier, which, by the way, Steve, we should get on a plane to Seattle and go meet with Amazon and tell them that they need us. But one of the things how I've been able to acquire new projects and jobs is because I tap into our own existing network. And also, I don't want to use the word vulnerable, but I'm very transparent to my clients. So I just recently got hired for for branding and designing a hotel 2 hours outside of San Francisco. And for those of you guys that know me, I can create a concept, but I don't know how to design a hotel. But I've worked with enough designers in the last 20 years with Joie de Vivre, Kimpton, and some amazing brands that I can partner with them. What I'm trying to say, Jen, in your game plan, you also need to surround yourself, make yourself a little bit vulnerable. Pick up the phone and say, you know what? I know I have a great concept for a hotel, but I need your design expertise. Can you work with me on this? And start building that family for a certain project or for your certain vision of where you want to go.
Absolutely.
That's so good. Kerry, I have a question for you. There are many people right now being furloughed, and I know you've spoken to several. What advice would you give them so that they could spend their time wisely and really think about what's important for them, so they actually feel they're now living with purpose and fulfillment?
I think first is to recognize that, and I said this before, that insecurity is not bad. It's a strength, right? So harness your insecurity and don't let it get out of hand. And then Peter said this too, on the networking side, you write down the people that you need to reach out to. Because during this time, it's about reaching out to people. It's very simple for us to actually move away and think about, oh my God, what's my next step? What do I do? So I would first go, you know what? Insecurity is okay. It's going to be a strength. It's your foundation of who you are. You've done this before. You can do it again. This is not the last time something like this is going to happen. As life goes on, we hit a lot of road bumps, right? So it has to come down to relationships and networking. Work your LinkedIn. Call. People like to refer people who they like, right? Get your resume updated. Also, it's not bad to think about what are other opportunities outside of our industry. There's so many things linked into it. When you think about 40 million people out of work, I think it's all the hospitality industry, because you're not just talking hotels and restaurants, you're talking car, you're talking all the other vendors, graphic designers, it just keeps going, right? So you have to look outside your sphere. I have a good friend who goes, Kerry, this is a great time for me now to actually be a director of sales. She comes from another hotel for an assisted living company. She goes, people in assisted living, everybody's living longer. Okay, they need help in sales to fill those places up. So I'm not saying that that is what you want to do, but why not actually go outside and test the waters and because Peter, you said this before to me yesterday, this could be an easy gap year for you. Gap year this for you. If you're looking for that job, maybe put the hotel business aside or whatever you're in and look outside the water to see what other land is there for you. And you will find something. You have to network it. You have to put yourself forward. It's good. It'll make you feel so amazing inside.
That's great.
Can I piggyback on Kerry, Chris?
Please, Steve, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I'm getting these kinds of calls.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm recommending the plan. I didn't realize what I was saying to people was really what Pete is calling his plan. And I'm suggesting a couple of things to people right off the bat. Number one, executive search firms are a good place to go because they will put you through a skill assessment.
Right.
What you've been doing probably touches on the areas of communication, managing team, leadership capability, motivating people, KPI, all those things that go into whatever you've been doing are probably project management, are probably all transferable to a whole bunch of other industries that you've never, ever thought about. So going to an exec, and you might get lucky and they might actually find a job for you. You're kind of also segueing, Kerry, into the whole idea of a mentorship. You cannot do this by yourself.
Right.
You don't want to do this by yourself. You should not do this by yourself. And there are three or four different kinds of people that you should seek to be your mentor. It could be a friend, so you're comfortable reaching out and being vulnerable and going, what do I do? Where do I go? But they're from a different industry. Or somebody who's inspirational to you. People who are successful are not opposed to helping people who reach out to them, that are smart enough to reach out to them for help, for whatever you think they could do for you. Another possible person would be somebody who is where you think you want to go. They can show you the pathway and get you there. And then I love Pete's comment earlier about just seeking out somebody from an emerging industry. For me, I'm going to zoom in on media. I want to know more about gaming, virtual reality, streaming. That's an area that you inspired me, Pete, to do a little bit of work on for myself. I guess the message is you don't want to go it alone. When I started out, I'll do this quickly. When I got my first sales job at Hilton Hotels, I'm thinking, where do I don't know you got a great personality. Well, that's terrific, but where do I go? To learn about sales? So I would ask my corporate accounts, who's the best salesperson that you're working with, and tell me why. I went to the source of people that interacted with salespeople. What did I know? I didn't know where to go. And I got my tips from people that were interacting with other salespeople, knew what good sales technique looked like, what bad sales technique looked like. I did that again when I became a manager and a leader. I reached out to people who were managers and leaders. And in those days, it wasn't called a mentorship. You just were smart enough to kind of figure out you need to be talking to somebody who's doing what you're going to be doing, and see if you can adapt those thoughts and those techniques and those behaviors to your way of doing it.
Steve,
you can't go it alone.
That's so good.
You got to have help.
Absolutely, right on the dot. And this actually pivots to Peter. Peter, now that we have great opportunity to take time for others, what are some examples on the mentorship level? And I know you're helping a few others being a mentor, especially Byron, being a spotlight mentor. Can you elaborate on that and how we all in this audience can be a support?
Well, thank you, Chris. And actually, you introduced me to Byron, which has been great so far. I think we've spoken about so much about reaching out to others for our own self, right? To grow our own business, to reimagine ourselves, re-identify ourselves as we're moving forward. But I'm a big believer of what goes around comes around. You could say karma, but reaching out and giving forward. And I think it's all of our responsibilities of everybody on this call. We've all started at one time, we're rookies in our career. Those that are senior should go back, and we can continue to create some great legacies and just make our industry stronger. One of the things, though, that the only way I will take on a mentee is you want to give it a time frame. It's almost like an agreement that you're going to have with this other person, and it's a job. You have to give yourself an assignment. I'll work with them on. I start off really with everybody with their LinkedIn profile, because sometimes you need somebody from the outside to be honest and say, hey, this is in our industry is what people are looking for. So that's one of the methods that I do with all of my mentees. But most importantly, it's a commitment, that it's a contract that you do with each other. And I highly recommend it, that it shouldn't go on forever. I like to do it on 3 months chunks. It could be a conversation, a commitment for a half hour every 2 weeks on a topic that they would like to work with.
Wow. Thank you, Peter, for sharing that. Kerry, this question is directed to you. What advice can you offer to pass it forward to a person who is a rising star, who just hasn't been in the industry for that long, but to give them fresh perspectives in personal and professional growth? I know there's a lot of individuals who just want to be a part of something. They're not too sure. What advice could you give them?
So what I'm hearing is what advice to give somebody who's a rising star, who might not have as much experience, but in the industry of hotel sales or in the hospitality industry?
In the industry as a whole, stepping in.
I think it's important that, and it was said earlier, I think that the number one thing that you have to bring to any job is being authentic in who you are. That is going to be seen by everybody around you. Now, not all of us have that quality off the bat, but it's something you can work on. It's something that you can be better at. Authenticity actually tears all the walls down and allows people to see who you are, because I would be the first one, and I've done it many times, I enjoy hiring people who are outside the industry or who are new to the industry, as far as like maybe younger, older. It doesn't matter. The fact is, I want to see them for who they are and where they want to go. If I see that, it's like, wow, it's like that person has everything they need to soar. Now, do I always make the right decisions? No. But typically, people become who they need to be in time. That's number one. I also think it's important to, okay, when Pinetti hired me years ago, Pinetti says, because you know the LA market, I want to hire you for the LA market. And I said, oh my God, I know all the clients. Now, Steve, I never told you this, but I never knew the clients. Okay, because my market was Dallas and Chicago, but I knew how to network. I knew that I could call all the airline reps who had all the different suburbs, right, of LA. I knew I could contact different representatives of hotels and talk to them about their company or their accounts they work with. And I knew that I was a networker. I could make it happen. If I had the ability to be ambitious, I would make it happen. And so I wanted to prove myself to you, and it worked. I said that I had confidence. It wasn't confidence. It was an insecurity that I felt that I needed to drive myself to have confidence. But I knew that I wanted to do it. And so, Steve, you saw that in me. And then, bam, I went. And I'm sure people on this call felt the same way. It's like, Steve, you put all of that into us. You made us better salespeople. And so you have to work it. You have to be authentic. You have to work it. You have to network to be the best you can be, and you will not fail. You will not fail.
And Kerry, you were such a testament in how you managed brand you. I know Steve and Pete can expand on this, but just to come out with a postcard campaign, to put yourself out there, to be the differentiator, really created this relationship. And I'm sure that was an insecurity at first, but you looked past that because you wanted to connect with people in a fun, loving way, which came to your advantage. So,
and that was a big thing we did. When Steve said, put your face on a postcard, and that was going to be to thousands of people, I thought, okay, this is going to be the end of my career. And maybe he wanted me out, but we had a good laugh over a beer bit. And here the thing is, thank you everybody listening, because people who saw that postcard campaign in the 90s when we still had stamps at 23 cents, right? And and we made those postcards probably sometimes not what you can do today, right? But I wanted to put myself out there because I thought, you know what? It's like sometimes you just have to go for it. And when you do, the world explodes. And it's not like it's, whether it's good or bad, the fact is sometimes you just want to blow up the world and make it yours. Steve, thank you so much for that. And thank you everybody who saw that postcard campaign as something that was fun and creative. And I'll tell you, being creative is where you have to be today. Think about what you can do differently that makes you stand out. I always say, what is your gimmick, right? How can you use your personality to be different than somebody else? And we all think of ourselves as being something different, right? So be that person that goes out there and rules the world. Don't worry about what people say, and make them your friend, because you know what? If you're authentic, it'll come right back to you.
That's so cool. And Kerry, we got a couple comments. Joe Montserrat, Ace, your Kerry postcards are legendary. So for everyone here who doesn't have one, maybe just show up at someone's house and you'll see them on the walls. And
you know what, Chris, Kerry was a pioneer in his day. You know, we might want to bring those back and have the post office. That's a way to raise money for our post offices in the United States.
That's so true. And Michelle Friedman even says that she still has stamps. So, hey,
I still have postcards. So if anybody wants some, let me know.
I love that.
Postcards.
And Kerry, thank you so much for sharing about that being a pioneer and really getting out of your comfort zone. And it's so important. And I know Steve Pinetti is a testament of supporting your growth. And just going back to mentorship, Steve, let me ask you, why is it so crucial for everyone to have a mentor, whether it's one mentor or several mentors, to really get perspective and grow and develop?
Well, I think Kerry helped answer the question. If you're just getting started, you may not know where true north is. You might have an idea of what you want to do or who you want to be or the kind of company that you want to work for, but you may not, you don't know what you don't know. Kind of this rising star, have they had any self-insight work? Are they kind of getting carried away with their own success? How are they being encouraged, but how are they being kept in check? And how are they being grown and developed going forward? For me, I've never had more than two. I've always had one, but every single time I would call a mentor and say, I have a situation here and here's what I'm thinking. Always, I would say, here's what I'm thinking I could do for a solution. Every single time, whether it was one or two, they would say something and I would go, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. And all of a sudden, my creative playing field is now 1 or 2 times bigger than it was. I've got some feedback that I never would have come to on my own. And I kind of mix that in with my own juice. And I would come up with a great direction. Or even if I wasn't sure, I had some confidence that, well, with this other feedback, I am on the right trail. My thoughts are right. I just can't imagine going it alone. And I think having a mentor can actually help you craft the plan that Pete's talking about. And a lot of times what I would do is I would have mentees of mine call on other people, not necessarily Kerry or Pete, but I would have them call on other people that I knew were a success in the area that this person is trying to go, so that they can hear firsthand. And so I'm kind of cheating and poaching a little bit on someone I know who is successful to just give a 30-minute interview, information call, just to encourage that person that they would not normally ever get if they were going about it on their own. I can't imagine doing it by myself or anybody doing it by themselves.
So that's a great segue, Steve. I've got a couple questions here. It's a 2-part question. One, Leah's wondering, if I don't know anyone in the industries where I'm trying to go within my personal network, and maybe even friends of friends, how do I start approaching people in new industries that I don't know for a mentor? And then also B, from Duffy, how do I expand and improve my networking skills and improve my existing network?
I think I would go to their org chart and I'd start at the top. My tendency is start at the top, work your way down. I recently gave a good friend of mine a recommendation on call the owner of the company, tell them who you are. We've kind of worked on your skill set. Have them hire you for 30 days at no charge so that you can prove your worth. This was somebody coming out of our industry, creative person, turned out, we talked about it, going to work for an ad agency because they were very creative, had a very fertile mind. If you can think it, you could do it. Anyway, made the call, got a 20-minute informational interview with the owner of the company that lasted an hour and a half, got hired. After 2 weeks, they put her on the payroll, and life goes on. Nobody thinks about that. Nobody thinks about calling the president or the chairman or the COO, the CEO, the general manager. Again, we're back to having confidence and where to go. But if you have a company you're interested in, you could probably call the HR people. You could probably call the department head of the area that you think you might have an interest in. But I would look at who their officers are and I would start there. And if you're really good at what you do and they have the kind of confidence that you think you can present yourself accordingly, why would you not go about it that way?
And Steve, to add to what you just said about, calling these companies, I think now is probably the best time to do it because either they have layoffs, they're recreating their company. It's like now is the time that if I was to get a call, it'd be like, okay, who are you? What idea do you have? Because we have to have new ideas at this point. Nothing is the same. Everything is brand new. So it's like, if they're open to hear, it's dialing for dollars. It's like, you might just get 2 or 3 people that might just go, you know what? I want to hear what you have to say. So
And I want to,
go ahead,
I
Pete.
want to piggyback on that, Steve. And if you're interested in a company, and I'm a big believer, just look at their board of directors or look at who's leading the company. But another angle that I found really useful is, and we have the tools now to do it, is look at their passions. So if I know that the president of this organization is a member of a certain foundation or likes to contribute to a certain cause, how can you be involved with that cause? You want to come about it from a very sincere and transparent part as well. But there's a lot of times that you can create those partnerships and those friendships purely because you have something in common that's not even the company you're trying to get into.
Right.
But they want to contribute to a certain cause or a certain philanthropic volunteer organization that then you can find common ground. And from there, build a relationship to get into the organization.
Wow.
That's a great idea.
Last question for the 3 of you, and I'm going to put this out there, who wants to respond. Jen mentions that people get in the way of their own success. How can an individual change their mindset so that they can foster growth and development? Who wants to expand on that?
I'll go on that one a little bit. People are afraid. People are afraid. We've been socialized since our early years to please the teacher, please the boss, please the coach, please the parents, please partners and spouses, please don't step out of the box, do what you're told. We've been grown and developed to live in a box and to be safe. And the minute you use the word change, you freak everybody out, or do things different, or evolve, that freaks people out. It's like the usual answer is, geez, everything's working great. Let's just leave it alone. To your point of this question is, everything isn't working great. And change is necessary. It's critical to survival. I think that is a massive mental hurdle for most people to get over. A lot of the people on this call have got their own companies, are self-made, and so they're relating to that aspect of what we're talking about. But there are also, I know, a lot of people on this call that are going, Jesus, where do I go next? I've been working in a hotel and a restaurant, and what are my skills? And I got the rent due, and what am I, are going through that. And again, I'm back down to don't do it alone. I think start getting some help, whether it's a search firm or partners that can hopefully calm you down, help you clear your mind, and begin to evaluate where you could go or where you might be able to go, and help you put some structure to the plan that Pete put together. But there's a lot of fear out there, and only the strong are going to survive. And that's really kind of what's going on here.
Well, we are beyond grateful for you, Steve, Pete, and Kerry, for being a part of this panel. We know we have to have a continuation in the near future because there's just so much depth when it comes to a topic like this. So everyone that's been on this call, we will have them back. Don't worry, you'll see their faces if you don't connect throughout the week or month. Thank you all again for participating, being a part of the Hospitality Mastermind series. Let's give a virtual applause for the 3 of them if we can. And I'm also going to hand this over now to Jen for some lasting remarks. But thank you all again. We really appreciate each one of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I did see one great question here that I would love to squeeze in because I think a lot of people can get a lot of value from this. And they're wondering, what suggestions would you have for upper level management to buy into opening the minds and encouraging their team, their staff to stop doing things that's the way that it's always been done and to try new things? And I think this also ties into mindset because we hold ourselves back, right? We focus
Right.
on the negative. We kind of, well, this is the way it's always been done. And the only way to survive right now, let alone thrive, is to think in new ways, to be more open, to be transparent and vulnerable. So, what do you say to those people to kind of get the upper level management to buy into this?
I think if I can take that question for a second is, I would think right now upper management would be more open than not to hear new ideas. And it takes that person to be able to speak to somebody to say, I have this amazing new idea that I think could be really great for our company. You have to get over the fear of asking that question because you have nothing to lose. They may say, we're fine, we're okay. But I would think that most would want to say, I want to hear what you have to say. And that could be the intro that you need to start changing their paradigm. So I would say, don't be scared, go forward and ask that question.
If the people at the top are not open to change or evolution, then, you know, what is it? The speed of the posse is the speed of the sheriff, right? If the leadership isn't there, the organization, there's no reason for the organization to be there because they won't get the kind of support that they would need to evolve and keep up with the times. And that's why I suggest start as high in the organization as you can. To Kerry's point, there's nobody who's untouched at this point. Very
Right.
few are riding through this wave, floating on top. And so you get a good indicator from the C-suite as to whether or not the organization is going to survive this time, and if they're open to the kind of changes they would need to do to thrive.
And as a gentle reminder, because I see a lot of the folks on the call have a sales background, very creative as well. Make sure as you communicate to those leaders the value not only that you bring, but make sure that your idea has measurability. And you might be saying, you know what, Pete, of course it does. No, a lot of times we all have great ideas and we're so excited to talk about it, but we don't show the measurement. There's science and art to sales. I think I gravitate to the art side, but I know that in order to get my point across, I need to focus on the science and measurability of it to be heard. So think about who you're talking to, how they like to be communicated to. It's kind of like my approach with a CFO is going to be completely different to a marketing leader, right? So think about who that leader is and how they like to be communicated, and get your point across that way.
Wow. Also good. Jennifer, do you want to end with that?
Yeah, sounds good. So I guess all in all, what we can really take away from this is we have the power to control our situation. No matter how shitty we're all in this type of climate right now, there are things that we can control, as Steve and Pete and Kerry have attested throughout their illustrious careers, right? Having the right attitude to thrive, making sure that you're doing everything that you can above and beyond to set yourself apart right now, especially because it is so competitive. What are you doing to set yourself apart? And how can you get out of your own way and your own insecurities and your fears by stepping outside of your comfort zone, reaching out to the people that may be able to help you, and just getting over, well, why would they want to talk to me anyways? What do I have to offer? These three guys here are saying, reach out, take a leap and ask. And the worst that could happen is no or no response. But if you don't do it, then nothing's going to happen. So taking action and taking those steps to maybe give yourself those opportunities and those possibilities is how you can start your game plan and kind of take those next steps in order to get to where you want to go. So thank you everyone here. And just like one last thing too, it's all about mindset, right? Mindset is the way that we think, therefore controls our behaviors and our patterns. So if that's something that you can shift, that's going to be huge in how you have your attitude moving forward and how you approach things and your perspective to that. So Chris, take it away. Oh, you're muted.
You guys are going to send out a questionnaire to everybody, right? And about not an evaluation, but what they got out of this or things for the future.
Everyone on this call, as Steve mentioned, they will be receiving a feedback form. We could greatly appreciate your input and how to improve and become better, because we will have them back on this call, and they're going to be working with us more closely with something we're launching in the near future. So I'm not going to give that away, but it is all about the mindset and empower one another. So thank you all. Thank you, Steve, Pete, Kerry again, and Jennifer. And we will have you back very soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.